So now I'm going to go over different types of abuse real quickly, and then we'll go into the important VAWA information that you should know. So we've talked about physical abuse, which I think a lot of people know, what physical abuse is, but there's also other things that fall into the category of physical abuse. If you have a spouse who is smashing things when they're angry, that could be physical abuse because it puts you in trepidation, right? Or you have somebody who abandons the family with no money, knowing that you can't go out and get a job, knowing that you don't have a job, they leave you without money, that's abuse. Or they're driving in a reckless way, such as maybe they're drunk and they're driving and they're putting you in fear of them getting into, an accident. That's abuse, right? Or you have a spouse who is driving and, drops you off at a place where they know you can't get a car, you can't find your way back home. That's abusive behavior. So abuse is not just somebody punching you and smacking you and throwing things at you, okay? Now there's also psychological abuse. This is intimidation, right? They intimidate you with the way they look at you, their gestures, or, they are threatening to call ICE. That's a big one, right? They're threatening to call ICE. They're threatening to call the police, and they tell you things like, nobody's going to believe you because you're illegal, quote unquote. I don't believe in calling people illegal, but the abusers will tell you stuff like that. You're illegal and nobody's going to believe you. I'm American, so they're going to believe anything I say. Or I'm going to call Child Protective Services and say you did this to the child. Or I'm going to take the children away from you and get you deported and you're never going to see them again. These are all psychological abuse. Or they take your phone from you and they want to, they're forcing you to give them their passwords. They're keeping a tab on you, where you're going, who you're talking to. They're isolating you from your friends and your family, telling you who you can talk to and who you cannot talk to, right? This is all, none of this is normal, right? It's not normal behavior. So you can also have verbal abuse where the person is calling you names. I know for a lot of women, they get called sluts, and for a lot of men, they call them, whatever. I know a lot of my clients, they will tell me their spouses call them community penis, or made fun of them, made fun of their body parts, verbal abuse. Maybe they're making fun of the way you speak, you're not pronouncing words properly, or they're embarrassing you in front of people. Maybe you say things and they embarrass you in front of people. All of that is abuse, right? They degrade you, make you feel bad about yourself, right? That's all abusive behavior. And we always want to distinguish this behavior from what USCIS calls marital tension, which they feel, I guess, USCIS definition of marital tension is that, sometimes marriages, people fight in marriages. We get that, but we're always able to distinguish this is not marital tension. This is somebody who has control and power over another person. Now, financial abuse happens, or economic abuse, when the spouse is, either they're forcing you to go to work and they don't want to work anymore because they feel that they got married to you and therefore they've done you this big favor, so you need to go out and work and provide for them, right? We see this with a lot of men. A lot of men actually suffer financial abuse, or they're asking you you need to buy this, buy that, things they know you can't afford, but they feel that, you're only able to work because I filed for you, therefore you're going to, cater to my every need, right? Or sometimes you want to go to school, get more education, or get a certain type of work, and they won't let you. And a lot of times it's because they feel that if you were to better yourself, get a better education, get a better job, that you won't need them. So they stop you from doing all of that, telling you that you can't do that. Sometimes the way that they do that is by refusing to file for you. They're like, well, we can't afford it right now. I can't file for you. I'll file later. All of that is abuse. It's control. It's power, right? So if they deny you access to the family income, they harm your credit rating. I get a lot of that people harming the credit rating. You have a joint account and the spouse doesn't put any money in there. The abusive spouse doesn't put any money in there, but they're taking money out, especially during this COVID-19 when people got stimulus checks. There's a lot of spouses, feeling that you don't deserve, this stimulus check because I'm the reason you were able to work. I'm the reason you're able to get this stimulus money. Therefore, all of it belongs to me. So that's abuse, So it's important for you to be able to begin to identify what's abusive behavior. And I find that sometimes based on culture, right, religion, maybe, it plays a factor in how people regard a relationship. And I'll go into that in a little detail when I'm done going through the different types of abuse, right? So you have a spouse who is taking your paychecks when you work, forcing you to quit your job, forcing you to work knowing you don't have papers, or forcing you to take care of all the bills, telling you that you're responsible for everything. That's abuse, right? Or they're threatening to report you to the IRS or report you to somebody because you're working and you shouldn't be working, that's all abuse. Now, let's talk about sexual abuse, right? Just because you're married to somebody does not mean you cannot get sexually abused in that relationship. According to American law, which is all that matters here, if your spouse is forcing you to have sex or forcing you to engage in sexual behavior that you don't want to engage in, that's abuse. That's sexual abuse. If your spouse is demanding sex, saying that you owe it to them, that's sexual abuse. All right? If your spouse is sleeping around and putting you at risk for STDs, that's sexual abuse. Now, remember this, and I want to make this caveat that infidelity is not abuse. So if you're going through your spouse's phone and you see that he's cheating, but you never knew, you wouldn't have known if you didn't go through his phone, that's not abuse. However, if he's bringing women to the home, or men to the home, or sleeping out, or, just disregarding your feelings with regards to, the way they're conducting themselves with other people, or refusing to let you put on some kind of protection, like maybe a condom to prevent you from getting any kind of STD, right? That's sexual abuse. Or they're forcing you to get on birth control, or telling you can't be on birth control, right? That's sexual abuse, right? So if they're insulting your sexual performance, making fun of certain things you do, or just making you feel bad about yourself, demeaning you, that's sexual abuse. So you have to, when you begin to see, I always say that it seems like some of these abusers go to like some kind of school of abuse because they come up with the most horrible things to do to somebody to make them feel horrible, So when you start feeling awful and feeling powerless, right? Even if this person, because that cycle of abuse where there's abuse and then there's the, honeymoon time when they tell you, oh, I'm sorry, and then they bring flowers and do the same thing all over again. It doesn't matter if they're treating you nicely the next time after they've done something horrible, going to cook for you after they've treated you badly. You have to know that abuse is not always there. Sometimes there are good times. And that's why sometimes domestic abuse victims find it hard to leave, right? Because it's not bad all the time, right? But you want to know that if it's any of these things where you feel powerless and you have no control and you're treated badly, it doesn't matter if they're good times as well. You're in an abusive relationship. So let's talk about emotional abuse. When somebody humiliates you, constantly threatening to leave you, that's a big one. Oh, I'm going to divorce you. If I divorce you, you're not going to get your papers. I'm going to leave you. You don't know anybody here, or there's nobody for you here. Always threatening you that they're going to do this because they have the power to do this and you don't have the power, right? Or they control your appearance. You can't do this. You can't wear this. You can't, their word is law, and this happens for both men and women. I mean, typically statistics show that women are in more abusive situations, but men are in abusive situations as well, but they don't like to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it, right? Because sometimes it's embarrassing to admit that, you know, you're in a relationship where you have no power, right? So it seems as if, you know, it only happens to women, but it happens to men and women. And so let me talk about where culture plays a part in abuse, right? And I'm going to talk from the perspective of where I'm from. I'm Nigerian, right? And so sometimes I go to the Facebook Nigerian pages and I read a lot of information about certain things which we Nigerians think is normal because that's what was normal when we were growing up, right? And I remember in particular this case where a woman had cut her hair and colored her hair because she wanted, I guess, in celebration of her birthday, and she came home and her husband threw her out, you know, basically telling her she had no right to do that to herself without taking permission from him. And I'm reading the comments, and I'm not even kidding you, so many people were like, well, he paid the dowry and you can't just change things on yourself without asking him. He's the head of the house. And so if you're from this culture where this is acceptable, if this is happening to you in America, you're going to think it's normal because you're talking to your friends who are going to tell you, oh, you shouldn't have done that. That's unacceptable. You should have told your husband before you colored your hair, you know? So you're talking to people who are telling you that this behavior is normal and it's okay. And so you don't think it's abuse. However, in America, it's abuse, right? So who's going to tell you it's abuse if you're not talking to a lawyer or listening to videos? You know, it's not going to be the friends who think this is normal. They've normalized this behavior. This is what they saw growing up. Or maybe religion. I'm Christian, so I can say, I know I've heard a lot of churches where they tell you about the virtuous woman who is supposed to be you know, basically suffer endlessly because you're virtuous, you know. And so all these terrible things are happening and the pastor is telling you, oh no, you need to wake up at midnight and pray some more, and wake up at 3 a.m. and pray for him and for his deliverance or her deliverance from Satan. Meanwhile, you're being, you know, beaten up or being abused in all these ways, but you feel that it's a satanic thing. I'm here to tell you, in United States of America, people are responsible for their actions. If you're being abused, we're not filing VAWA through Satan. We're going to file VAWA through the abuser, and you can do that. So it's important, if you're not feeling, if you feel that your spouse is cruel to you, doesn't treat you well, based on some of the things I've said, or based on other things, you know, certain feelings, you should explore it and see if there's an abuse component. Are you being abused in this relationship? And typically people who are being abused don't want to talk about it because they don't want to call the police because they have no papers. They don't want people, you know, there's also that cultural thing where you don't want people to know what's going on in your home because people were not supposed to talk about these things outside. You know, I remember when I first came to the United States and I watched Oprah, I was so shocked that people came out and talked about their business, you know, because I just came from Nigeria and we don't do that, you know. So now it's no big deal, you know. But if you're somebody who thinks, oh, we can't discuss this, everything just has to stay in, you know, it might be hard for you to understand that some of these things that's happening to you is abusive and that you can get relief through VAWA. And that's the reason why I do these videos, because the more you know, the better you can protect yourself, the better you can get the rights that you deserve. So let's see. Okay, so let's keep going. I've talked about different types of abuse. We've talked about physical, emotional, sexual, financial, verbal, psychological, you know. So there are different types of abusive conduct. If you're not sure, get a consultation with an attorney so that they can go over, you know, what you're going through, right? And tell you if you qualify for VAWA, all right? So I'm gonna take questions at the end when I'm done. I just wanted to get the story out. And Alona Hopkins says, this is such great information to share with others that may need it. Yes, and that's the reason, you know, I do this VAWA informational sessions. I do it all the time. So if you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, I have all that information, right? And if you know somebody who you think might benefit from this, give them my information, let them follow me. There's a lot of people giving information on VAWA. So now let's go to the important information you need to know about VAWA. All right. Okay. So VAWA, you can file VAWA if any of these three things happen, right? If the US abuser dies, you can still file for VAWA, but you have to file within 2 years of the death. Now, this is not applicable to the death of a green card holder. Now, I don't know why, because it's still abuse, right? But for some reason, they created this artificial, demarcation where if it's the US abuser, yes, you can file for VAWA 2 years after. And divorce, you can divorce your US citizen spouse, green card holder spouse. However, within 2 years of the divorce, you must file for your VAWA. And you cannot remarry before your VAWA petition is approved. Please, I'm going to say this again, because I have clients calling me and saying, well, what if nobody knows? Please don't do it. You must file you cannot remarry before your VAWA petition is approved, and you cannot remarry before filing VAWA. So if you're going to file VAWA, you stay in for the long haul, which it is, because the rates, the VAWA case takes about 20 to 24 months. And you have to hang in there and get your green card. And the good thing about VAWA is it depends on you. You're not waiting for somebody else to file for you. So even if you now meet the love of your life, I tell my clients, just hang in there. If the love of your life, if it's the love of your life, they will still love you 2 years from now when you get your green card through VAWA, okay? But of course, it's a client's decision. Now, if you have a green card holder who has been deported, that means that they are no longer a green card holder. However, you can still file VAWA if you file within 2 years of their deportation. So VAWA is just a gift, right? In recognition of the fact that people are abused in relationship and the vulnerable position an intended immigrant is in, VAWA gives a lot of advantages that other filings, other petition types don't. So if you're in an abusive relationship, please take advantage of this. And another thing is, I think I mentioned it before, you don't have to divorce your abusive spouse if you don't want to. You can stay married to them. And you don't have to stay married to them if you don't want to. You can divorce them. So you can just do what feels right to you.